Right?
Yay, welcome.
Oh, wonderful.
Welcome, Ryan. Thank you. Kick it off.
Thanks, Steve. I have a kind of a unique presentation style. I never do slides. I just hate slides, don't like using them. And whenever I start off a presentation, for the most part, I come in, I have an idea of what I want to talk about, but I never actually know where it's going to go. But all I know is my objective of what I'm trying to achieve here today. Resilience is something that maybe we're hearing a little bit more about today, but it's something that we're not focusing enough on in business. We're not focusing enough on it personally. And it's my mission, my purpose, to ensure that every single time someone interacts with me, they're thinking a little bit more about their resilience. Because I've really been obsessed with this over the past probably about 5 to 6 years. And I always wondered, what did people do to rebound? Because life is tough, right? Sometimes we go through some really hard times. We go through some hard stuff. We lose our jobs. We lose family members. We have financial problems, health problems. How do you rebound from this stuff? So success leaves clues. Success always leaves clues. So what do we have to do? We go and look at the resilient ones. So I think about a woman in the United States. She was married, happily married, or so she thought. Finds out her husband was cheating on her. She has to get a divorce. Hardest time in her life. Having to go through a divorce, cheating husband. She goes to the divorce. Brand new me, I have to start fresh. What do? She moves. She moves with her daughter, or her kids, her 3 kids. They move somewhere else in the United States, and life is good. Got a new job, starting fresh. Life's fantastic. Sunday morning, her daughter running to church. As she runs across the street, her daughter gets hit by a drunk driver. She gets hit so hard that her shoes are left in place, and her daughter goes flying 125 feet. How do you rebound from that? I have another story here locally. Whenever I do a presentation in whatever city I'm presenting in, I do my best to try and find resilient individuals in that city to give it context. Certain people will be able to pinpoint that. So for people who are in Winnipeg, you might know this story in particular. It was a cold February day, so cold as minus 40. For my American friends out here, minus 40 Celsius is the same as minus 40 Fahrenheit, so extremely cold. It's so cold to the point where the cars are sitting there and the exhaust coming from the cars is almost creating kind of a fog in the air. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Same thing. Mother's walking with her son in hand, young boy, and her son is 10 years old. They've done this path every single day for years and years and years. Today is no other day, just a little bit colder. Goes and hits the button at the crosswalk. Excited to go to school. First car stops. The other car did not stop. That poor boy lost his life that day, and the mother had to see that. And I get cold shivers when I tell that story because I don't know how I would react in a situation like that. How do I rebound? And so again, success leaves clues. And the last example I'll give you is an individual who had a passion. He wanted to start his own business. He had a purpose to help people save lives every day. Noble purpose. As he started his business, he brought in his sister, he brought in his dad, he was employing them, he was living his purpose, life was good. You know, he felt like a champion. He's like, I finally made it. 5 years in business, I'm employing my family, we're making money, we're in the black, profitable, life is good. Goes on vacation. On vacation, he gets a phone call. Phone call from his family saying that your sister passed away from a fentanyl overdose. My God, I work with her. So he comes back. He has to deal with that. He has to try and do his best to cope. Sister passes away. Dad doesn't want to work there anymore. Okay, so the business kind of goes through a little bit of a downturn, but as we all do, we cope in our own ways and we get back to some level of normalcy, whatever normal is. A year later, he's out on vacation. Eerily similar. Gets another phone call. On the phone, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. My other sister passed away from a fentanyl overdose. He's sitting there like, I can't believe this. I can't do this again. At this point, it's so hard on him. His business takes a downturn. He's now in the red. struggling to make payroll, losing his culture, losing his health. His health is manifesting itself in negative ways, skin disorders, back going out, blacking out. He starts to rebuild. He starts to rebuild. Then he gets smacked in the face one more time when he finds out that his wife is suffering with an aggressive form of MS, multiple sclerosis. This man has been hit time and time and time again. And that's life, though, right? I know that, you all came here for this very positive talk, but that's life. Sometimes life hits you really, really hard. And I've been obsessed with that. Why is it that certain people are able to rebound? And why is it that certain people don't? So I first look inside. I look at my own life. I say, one day this got me thinking, because somebody told me, for people who do know me, they say, Ryan, you're very positive, very outgoing, always optimistic. And the reason that it kind of bugged me, because they said the reason why you're like that is because not enough bad shit has happened to you in your life. And I kind of sat there and thought about that and was almost offended by that. Who do you think you are? Do you even know what I've gone through? So I don't want this to turn into a match of, do you know what I've been through? Do you know what I've been through? And then try to compare whose life was the worst to figure out how bad our lives are. That's not the game I want to play. The game I play is abused as a child, bullied in high school or bullied in junior high, finally started to get things going in high school, lost some of my good friends, some of my best friends tragically to murders, go through university. University were good years, built my body up, built my finances up, got a great job. And then as I started to move forward, went off on my own, becoming an entrepreneur. My client screws me over to the tune of $150,000. Now I'm in debt at a time when I really didn't need that debt. Family members sick. It's just, I sit there and I say, how did I get through it? I look at myself. Success leaves clues. What did I do to get through these things? What did these three individuals do to get through these things? And I continually thought about that over and over and over again. But I never did anything with it until I had to. So before I started doing this, I was a marketing and sales professional. So I would go into companies, help them develop their marketing strategies, help them develop their sales strategies, help them grow. So I'd go into an organization, CEO would call me, they'd say, Ryan, I'm going to hire some folks, I need you to train them. We need some marketing strategies, sales strategies, I need you to help optimize our department. No problem, I'll come in there, boss, I got you. I go in there and I do it. All right, put in my systems, put in the practices, train up the people. They're firing in all cylinders, baby. I say, I'm done, finish my contract, I'm out. As I go away, I'll come back in 6 months and see what's going on. As I go away, 6 months later comes back, get a phone call from the CEO, and the CEO says, Ryan, I got to fire these people. You got to fire these people? What the heck happened? Why do you have to fire them? He goes, they're not performing anymore. Why aren't they performing? I don't know. They're just losers. They got no motivation. They can't get things going. And I sit there and I'm wondering, what the heck's going on? And this became the constant theme in my career, and I couldn't figure out why that was. And I felt like a failure because I couldn't figure it out. I constantly asked myself the question, what am I doing differently? Am I doing something wrong? Am I not smart enough? And it really kind of plays with your mind a little bit. All these strategies should be working. They've worked before. They worked 6 months ago. What's going on now? Until one day, you ask yourself a better question, you get a better answer, right? You ask yourself a shitty question, you get shitty answers. Your brain is a computer. What you ask of it, it'll return to you. It's just how it works. So I started to ask a better question. And the question I asked myself was, how do I, or what do I need to know that I don't know today to help fix the problems that have been persistent in my life? And one day I'm just driving to dinner with my friends, and it just pops in my head. I canceled the dinner, started working. And I didn't realize this for some reason. But again, it comes back to success leaves clues. How did I rebound from my difficulties in life, from the challenges that I had? Well, did I even think that maybe these individuals are going something very similar to themselves? So the next time I went into the office, I asked them, I said, how are you feeling mentally? And they looked at me and I could just tell, right? Physiology determines psychology. Shoulders down, eyes looking down. They tell you, they confirm it. Culture here sucks. Boss is an ass. Our product is wrong. This is wrong, everything's wrong. I can't do anything. They're helpless. And at that point I realized it had nothing to do with the strategies. It had nothing to do with the tactics. It had nothing to do with what I put in place. That's good. It came down to what was going on in here. And so again, now I have to ask myself a different question. How do I fix that problem now? And that's essentially where I came up with my philosophy of create your 8, which maybe some of you have heard before. I don't know if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, but I kind of put that out there quite often. And I obsessed about this. And some of you may also know, I run a podcast called The Cut the Crap Show, where every single week I interview a New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestselling author and bring them on the show. People don't have time to read, so I condense their books down to a handful of golden nuggets. So in my constant search for truth, I would go to these experts. I'd talk to psychologists. I'd talk to neuroscientists, and I'd understand how the brain worked a little bit better. I have the privilege of working with my sister, who's a neuroscientist who works in Mount Sinai Hospital, Icahn School of Medicine, New York City. So I constantly get like a flood of just like FedEx like papers this big and studies that I review. And so Create Your 8 was essentially the culmination of the constant failures that I was experiencing and how do I fix this? How do I fix this problem? And understanding a little bit more about how the brain works. So essentially Create Your 8, what I've done is I'm trying to increase self-awareness of how we feel every day. I always say that I measure my mood. I measure how I'm feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. Every morning when you wake up, first thing in the morning, you start off at a 5. The first thoughts you think, the first action you take will determine whether or not you move up or you move down. I have people ask you, hey, how you feeling today? Man, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling at a 9. Cool, well, how do you get to a 9? Right? If I'm sitting at a 3, how do I go from a 3 to a 4, 4 to a 5, 5 to a 6? Like, how do I do that? So I started to ask my folks, I said, we have a practice. Every morning we have a meeting. How you feeling? Feeling at a 3. Shit, he's feeling at a 3. How can I expect my sales guy to get on the phone and do cold calls, prospect, when he's sitting at a 3? Is he going to be intense on the phone? Is he going to come across confident? Is he going to have conviction? No. How do I expect my marketing team, if they're sitting at 3s and 2s, to be creative? It's going to be really hard to do that. And that was the case. So now I said every morning when you wake up, you start off at a 5. The first thoughts you think, the first action you take will determine whether you move up or down. If you wake up first thing in the morning and you look at your phone and the first thing you look at is an email from your boss or from a client and it's not very good, that's going to bring you down to maybe a 4. But what's a 4? A 4 is when you experience a negative emotion. Right? You experience kind of a small little negative event. It's not too bad, but it brings you down a little bit. Now, what happens when you get to a 3? To a 3, you start to layer those negative emotions. Maybe you are feeling angry. Maybe you wake up and you're feeling angry at your spouse for some reason, or angry at an email you received. You're feeling sad because you just remembered something, maybe a family member passed away, or your dog is sick, or somebody in your family is sick. That's going to bring you down as well. So they're starting to layer emotions. Maybe you feel guilty because you have to leave for work and you got to travel, and you know that you're going to miss your kids this week. That's all very real. And so if you're feeling a layering of negative emotions, you're sitting at a 3. When you get to a 2, that's when they've persisted for a long time and you haven't dealt with them. I've sat at a 2 for a long time, and it sucks. It really sucks. It pulls all of the life out of you. It pulls the zest out of life. And at that point, it was just, me existing. I wasn't at my most creative. Some days I didn't even want to get up out of bed. When you're sitting at a 2, you might even be you might have clinical depression. It was a time in my life where I started to notice my skin, my psoriasis started to come back. I had chronic back pains and digestion issues. Went to the doctor to go check it out, and my doctor tells me, Ryan, he goes, I think you're suffering from depression. Get out of here, suffering from depression, come on. I knew it ran in my family. Right? My mother suffers from depression, my grandparents suffer from depression. I knew it's in the family. I said, come on, not me. And he goes, the symptoms are there, Ryan. Tell me a little bit about your life and what's going on. Finances weren't great, relationships weren't great, work wasn't great, health obviously wasn't great. And he goes, yeah. He's like, that's depression. He goes, what I'd like to do is I'd like to prescribe to you an antidepressant, SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor. He goes, I'd love to get you on a protocol and see if we can boost your mood a little bit. Gave me the prescription. I went to the pharmacy and I said, was this something I really want to do? Do I want to start taking medication? And I want to make it very clear that I'm not anti-medication. People, when they hear me talk, they say, oh, this guy's just anti-medication, anti-SSRI. No, not at all. Not at all. We all do our best to cope in whatever way is possible, and sometimes we do need a short-term protocol of medication to help bring us back up. Sometimes we're in very serious situations where we do need that. We all have to make those decisions ourselves. For myself, I believe in taking a different prescription, the resilience prescription. And at that point, I said, you know what, I got to do my best to fight through it, and I'll tell you, it was really tough. It was tough. Some days, I'd be overcome with so much depression, so much sadness, or I'd be sitting at a 2 for so long, and I struggled. I said, how do I get out of this? I remember 1 year, for 6 months straight, I literally worked, because I'm an entrepreneur, I work by myself. All my clients were in Toronto or Chicago, and none of them were in my hometown, so I was working online most of the time. My blinds never opened up. I was literally working in the dark. I'd go to sleep in the dark, wake up in the dark, and just work. And I started to look at the habits of my life, and I said, there's no wonder why my doctor is telling me I'm depressed. Look at my habits. Look at the thoughts that I'm thinking. The thoughts that I'm thinking is impacting how I feel. How I feel is impacting how I behave. How I behave is impacting my results. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. I have been trained as a cognitive behavioral therapist to understand the mind better, to understand exactly how our thoughts impact our results in life. And how we manage our thoughts really comes down to this scale. Again, 5, indifferent. You start off, comme ci, comme ça. First thought you think, the first action you take will drop you either up or down. You have one negative emotion, it can bring you here. A layering of negative emotions to the 3. Those negative emotions, if they layer for too long, becomes a 2. Now, if you're at a 1, I have worked with some people at 1s. At 1s, it becomes very dire. Suicidal, coping using drugs or alcohol for long term. That's not a good place to be, and at that point, you really need to have some professional help that's very customized to you. And I have had to have some people, I've had people come in my program who were like that, who ended up being like that, and it's unfortunate, but to see them rebound up, it's very rewarding. So now let's move up the ladder instead. You move up to a 6. How do you move up to a 6? Again, you're feeling maybe happy first thing in the morning. Maybe you're feeling a little bit grateful. Maybe you're looking forward to something. Maybe all of you woke up this morning at a 5, and then the first thought you thought was, you know, I'm going to go to a conference all day. I get to learn. I'm looking forward to this. Anticipation. You move up to a 6. Yeah, perfect. Now, how do you get to a 7? You get to a 7 because now you have a layering of positive emotions. It's the same as negative, but now you have a layering of them. Maybe now you've come here. Maybe you're at a 7 now. Why? Because you're interacting with people, good friends, good conversation. You're going to learn stuff. You're looking forward to the entire day ahead. Man, I'm feeling great, right? 7. I argue that every day we need to fight to create your 8. You need to fight to create your 8. When you're sitting at an 8, you know your purpose in life. If I was to ask you, who are you? What is your purpose on this planet? It's a big question, but you know the answer to that. What are your goals? You have goals, you're working towards them? Great. You know exactly how to cope with the stresses of life. You know exactly the right tools to use. You're educated in terms of how to manage your own mindset. Create your 8. Now people ask me, why 8 out of 10? Why not 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10? I believe that 9s and 10s don't happen that often. If you're a 9 out of 10, it's something very eventful, right? For example, you go on vacation with your family, with your friends. You're going to Mexico, you're going to Bermuda, Puerto Vallarta, Europe, whatever. You go on vacation, you leave all your problems behind. You're looking to create great memories, you're going to have a great time. You're living a 9 experience. Those are events in life, right? Maybe a Christmas is a 9. Maybe birthdays are a 9. Maybe today this is a 9. One thing I'll say is that sometimes you just actually have to understand whether or not it's a 9 or 8. And sometimes that thought alone of saying, you know what? Today's going to be a 9 experience. It's going to allow yourself to be a little bit more present in the moment and say, you know what? How do I create a 9 today, a 9 experience? Because this is something that is eventful. This is not something we do every day. This breaks the norm. You guys could all have 9 experiences today. How are you going to do that? The 10, man, those 10s don't happen very often at all. Just a handful of times in our lives, right? When you hit a 10, people say, well, Ryan, how do you judge and say, you know, what's a 10 and what's a 9? A 10 is almost a very physiological response where, you know, I'm talking like you're jumping up on the couch Tom Cruise style on Oprah where you're just so happy. You're just like, yes, like what's going to bring you to a 10? Very few things are going to bring you to a 10. Maybe you win the lottery. You win the lottery on Friday. You're not going to be, you know, standing there saying, hell yeah, did it, hell yeah. No, it's funny. The reason why I think about this and use the lottery example, because when I was 15, I started working at 7-Eleven, and I scanned a guy's lottery ticket, and he won $100,000 on the extra, and all of a sudden I was like, holy shit. I'm like, you won $100,000. He looks at me, he's like, holy shit. And he ran around the store and he was just cheering. I was like, oh my God, like calm down. I'm like, that man had a 10 experience. It's almost like a firework. It doesn't last very long. It's very short-lived. And maybe you have a kid, same thing. Maybe you have a cancer diagnosis and you find out it's in remission. 10 experiences. Create your 8 is my goal. With everybody that I talk to, with all the content I put out, I want people to create their 8. The question is how? How do I do that? That's where my studying of cognitive behavioral therapy, my focus on leadership in sales and marketing, my constant obsession with the brain and neuroscience and psychology has brought me to understand how to do that. I want to share a lot of that with you today. To build resilience, we start off with the 2 precursors of resilience. The first one, I've mentioned it already. Purpose. Who are you? What is your purpose? When I ask that question, some people say, oh, come on, man, like purpose, that's such a big question, who cares? No, you should care. The individual I said at the very beginning had a purpose. Both of the women that I mentioned at the very beginning had a purpose. I'm going to get back to them a little later on in this presentation, but they all had purpose in their lives. After that, they had to find purpose. They had to find what their job was here on this planet. To me, my purpose is huge, it's big. I want to eradicate stress-induced depression. There's many different types of depression, but stress-induced depression is a result of layering of negative emotions, negative situations, us lying to ourselves, us not addressing the pain in our lives. It's a big goal, and people, when I tell them that, they're like, you're nuts, you're crazy, you're never going to be able to do that. Perfect, that's what I want. I want something that's going to be really, really difficult for me to do. My purpose is number 1. I know who I am. I know what I have to do every day. When I wake up in the morning, I know what I'm here to accomplish on this planet. The second precursor to building resilience, goals. And again, when I say goals, everyone's like, oh my God, goals? Like, well done, Caligiuri. Like, I didn't know we needed goals. No, we do need goals in our lives. But the problem is, it's really funny, we're all really shitty at setting goals. We truly are. When I run my clients through the goal setting workshop in module 2, I realized really quickly that we all know what goals are. We all know we should have goals, but how real are our goals? Our goals, are they really designed to help improve our lives, or are we just setting goals for the sake of setting goals? I'll tell you right now that out of the 90 people who have passed the program, I work with 30 a year for 12 months. There has not been one individual who's come out with goals that I'm like, all right, those are perfect. We always redo the goal setting workshop probably about 2 or 3 months right afterwards, just to execute on their very simple goals or realize, wow, that goal wasn't what you wanted at all. Goals are really important because they activate our mind. They give us something to focus on. When we have goals, we live in this state of excitement. We're challenged. We want to build something. And hopefully those goals are designed to pull you from here up here. But oftentimes the goals that we set don't address these pieces here. Finances, health, relationships, career. You know, and they are, but they're not enough. Or we don't hold ourselves accountable to our goals. The 2 precursors to building resilience, purpose and goals. The next piece, the 4 pillars of resilience, are absolutely key. Absolutely key. Obviously, the 4 pillars of resilience, you need all 4 of these to build resilience. What's the first one? The first one, self-awareness. We all need to increase self-awareness. It's one of those things that you say, well, how do you build self-awareness? It takes time. Self-awareness of the external. So what's happening externally? What are the stressors in our lives that are impacting our mindset? You know, the people, the news, the work, the clients, all these things. How are they impacting us? What's our circle of influence? Who's around us and what are we allowing to influence us in our external? Then it comes down to internal now. Understanding how you think internally, how you process things internally, self-awareness internally. So if Darcy pisses me off this morning, which he doesn't, I love Darcy, he's amazing. But if somebody pissed me off this morning, if I have high self-awareness, I'll understand, wow, this person in my external provided me with negative stimulus. I feel really bad. This guy brought me from, I was feeling at a 6 and now he brought me down to a 4. Ask yourself a better question, you get a better answer. Why did he bring me down to a 4 today? What did he say? Oh, he said this. And why did that impact me? You know, we don't do enough to evaluate the thoughts in our mind. Because we are not our thoughts, right? Our thoughts aren't a representation of who we are. Our thoughts are just things that fly through, and it's up to us to determine if those thoughts are true or not. It's up to us to examine that. And a big piece to building self-awareness as well is also understanding the relationship we have with pain and pleasure. And this is where my marketing hat comes on. Because for the most part, I've done very well in marketing because I remembered two things. Marketing is all about getting people to know you, like you, and trust you. If they know you, like you, trust you, they're going to buy you, right? Buy your services, buy your ideas, buy your philosophies. And the second one is understanding how to use pain and pleasure. And advertisers have been doing this for years, understanding how to, associate pleasure, like Pepsi and Michael Jackson, right? People, they love hearing Michael Jackson. They love the music. It makes them feel good. It brings them up. Perfect. If we take Michael Jackson's music, he makes people feel good, and we associate with our product, people are going to feel great, right? Coke and the teddy, or the big polar bear. Same thing. If we make people feel good, feel pleasure towards our product, we're going to feel great. The question is how to use pain and pleasure in your own lives. Some of us don't. In fact, I'd argue most of us don't. Pain and pleasure use us. So part of increasing self-awareness is understanding the relationship that we have with pain and pleasure. So, for example, if you are starting to procrastinate more, why am I procrastinating? I'm procrastinating because I associate too much pain to doing the work and not enough pleasure. So what do? In our minds, increasing self-awareness, we need to figure out how I can associate more pain to not doing something, and then at the same time, how can I associate more pleasure to doing that? It really takes discipline to have that self-awareness and ask yourself those questions. So the first pillar of resilience is increasing self-awareness. The second, self-actualization. And if anyone who's familiar with Maslow's motivation model or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I prefer using the motivation model. Self-actualization is us essentially going from taking care of our basic needs, our physiological needs, emotional needs, and moving up that pyramid to self-actualize, to become the best versions of ourselves. That's key for us, because far too often what brings us down is that our finances maybe are in the sewer, right? Our health sucks. Our relationships aren't good. We're not happy with the work that we do. And as a result, we're not happy. And so we look at all the basic needs, and if our basic needs aren't met, if some of the more simple needs are not met, then we're going to be sitting around here. But as we set goals, as we define our purpose, we're able to move up this ladder because we're challenging ourselves. We're bringing on challenges, and as a result, we're moving up that pyramid. That's progress. That's us working in life. So that's self-actualization. The third pillar, self-belief, confidence. Right? You're not going to be able to move forward if you don't have self-belief. So we have to build self-belief. How do you build self-belief? There's so many different ways we can do it. We'll talk about a few in a little bit. But in the end, you are not going to succeed if you don't have self-belief. If you have low self-belief, you will hurt your ability to be resilient. You will hurt your ability to try to achieve your goals. And the last pillar, this is the big one, self-discipline. You don't become anything, or you don't accomplish anything in life unless you have self-discipline. If you don't have commitment, you're not going to follow through on your goals. You're not even follow through on examining your own thoughts. Self-discipline is key. And there's an author, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL, he wrote the book, Extreme Ownership, great management book. He says that discipline equals freedom. Discipline equals freedom. And I love that because it's so true. When you're disciplined with your health, you have more freedom. You can do more. You're not constrained. When you're more disciplined with your work, you have more opportunity to do more in life. When you're disciplined with your finances, you have more ability to spend, to control where you put your money. Discipline equals freedom. To start building resilience, we need to understand those 6 components first. The 2 precursors, finding your purpose, defining clear goals that are going to move us from the bottom tier to the top, above the fold. The 4 pillars, self-awareness, self-actualization, self-belief, self-discipline. Once we understand that, now we need to get into the meat of Create Your 8, which is all about short-circuiting and reprogramming our monkey brain. And when I say monkey brain, people are like, monkey brain, what are you talking about, Caligiuri? We can't forget that we are descendants of thousands upon thousands of years of hunter-gatherers, and we have that DNA ingrained in us. And the reason why we're all here today is because of a very simple emotion, fear. Fear kept us alive. And we needed fear, because why? If we're running away from saber-toothed tigers or T-Rexes, we don't stand a chance. You know, our weak pink bodies, like we don't stand a chance against orangutans and the such. We're going to get killed. So the reason why we are here today is because of fear. Fear is what kept us alive for so long. But that fear response, we don't need that anymore. We don't need that fear response, that ostrich head in the sand response, but that is ingrained in our DNA. And so a big part of the program for me is I need to short circuit that part of our brain. I need us to be more cognizant of that part of our brain. That fear response, Seth Godin calls it the lizard brain. And that lizard brain holds us back from shipping. It makes us, tinker and tinker until, our project is just perfect. There's no such thing as perfection, productivity over perfection. But we don't believe in that. Any organization that I've been in, we all suffer with the lizard brain. We all suffer with that monkey brain, that fear that we want to do well. This has to be perfect. I can't ship this code yet. It's not done yet. And Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, always says that if you are not embarrassed by your first release, you shipped too late. I kind of like that philosophy from somebody who's extremely successful. So how do you short circuit your brain? How do you short circuit that fear response? That desire to want to hide when times get tough. The desire of your brain to always look for the worst case scenario. You ever find that? Every single one of us, have you ever found that? I know you all find that. Every single one of you here has that same response. We always think worst case scenario. Maybe some of you who are presenting today, and you're maybe doing your first presentation, or maybe you're not a seasoned presenter. Maybe you're sitting there thinking like, oh my God, last night, what could happen? Like, what if my slides don't go well? What if I forget? What if I get dry mouth? What if no one responds? What if my evaluation is bad? Oh my God. And our brains are the best storyteller. They're great storytellers, and they always love horror stories. And why does our brain do that? Our brain does that because it's trying to protect ourselves. It's trying to protect us by saying, listen, I'm going to give you the worst case scenario so that if something bad happens, you're going to be safe. Because I've given you every single potential negative outcome that could happen. So you know what? If it does happen, I got your back. But how often do you find that those worst case scenarios in your brain never actually come true? Sometimes they do, but I find for myself personally and the folks that I talk to, it doesn't happen that often. So I'm going to give you a few ways that you can start to short circuit and reprogram your brain. I have 50 modules that are used, that are a combination of different habits that you create, different philosophies, different challenges that you take on to help challenge your brain, to build resilience. I'll give you 3 today. One of the first ones, I don't just like wearing my shirt open for some reason like that. I always like to do this because I always like to do the dog tags. Darcy always tells me I got to go one more button up, so maybe I'll do one more button up, who knows. But I always like my dog tags. And people say, like, what's the deal with the dog tags? What's the deal with these? Everybody who graduates the program gets dog tags. And on the dog tags are what I call power philosophies. We all look at quotes, right? Instagram, Facebook quotes. We like the quotes, right? They make us feel good. But quotes aren't that good. Quotes make us feel good. They make us feel like we've accomplished something. But that's not good. It tricks our brain to say, oh, you know what? I'm feeling really low right now. I'm sitting at a 3. What do I do to bring myself from a 3 to a 4? You know what? I'm going to go on Instagram and Facebook and find me some inspirational quotes or find me an inspirational video. Yeah. I feel good. Yeah, perfect. I'm feeling at a 5 now. I'm feeling great. Short term, though. Did you actually address the root cause of the problem? Or did you just make yourself feel good today? We all know how that works. I'm feeling like crap. I'm going to go to McDonald's and grab me some Mickey D's. That's going to make me feel good, right? For the short term. So how do power philosophies, how do these things help us? I tell people to go find your favorite quote. Go find your favorite quotes. Pick 10 quotes and ask yourself, does this quote help me increase my self-awareness? Does this help me in my path to self-actualization? Does this help me in increasing my self-belief? And does this help me increase self-discipline? If they say yes to all of those, then you got a power philosophy that can help you in that point in life. Your power philosophies will change depending on where you're at in life. My power philosophies, I'll share them with you. 2 of them I've actually made mandatory for everybody. If you're in the program, it's a go or no-go point. You either believe in these philosophies or you don't. If you don't, thank you. If you do, let's continue. The first power philosophy. It's not a setback, it's a setup. Now, why did I make that mandatory? I made that mandatory because it gives you control of your life. When bad stuff happens, and it always does, because that's what life is, right? Life is never a point of like, oh, finally, comfortable. No, life is always problem, crisis, problem, crisis, problem, crisis. That's life. Welcome to the world. So how do you protect yourself? I'll give you an example. Worked my butt off. I was really proud of myself, achieved my goals, bought myself a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT, changed the wheels up, got it all shined up, looking really good, put some money into it. I was so happy. Man, I loved it. One day driving in the mall, and I realized there's a stop sign there. My brain's kind of shut off. I just roll through, boom, someone smashed into my car. I look, rolled right through the stop sign, right? Beautiful day outside, sunny day, there was no reason for it, just they weren't paying attention. They were on their cell phone. Immediately after I look at my car smashed up, I'm put at a 3. I'm pissed off at the person who hit my car. I'm pissed off that this happened. I'm sad, I'm feeling, all kinds of negative emotions. At that point when I sat down there, I looked at my dog tag and I said, this isn't a setback, this is a setup. And people sometimes say, come on, Ryan, don't give me that bull. It's not a setback, like this is bad stuff. Maybe sometimes just bad stuff happens, right? You don't always have to look for the silver lining. Sometimes there's no silver lining. No, I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that. I believe there is no such thing as a long-term negative. I don't care what it is. Give me the worst case scenario. Give me the worst case scenario. And people have challenged me on this before. In fact, somebody at one of my presentations got really bold and stood up and said, Ryan, what happens if you're very aggressive example, and I sometimes feel uncomfortable about sharing it, but it's just the truth of what happened. Because what happens if your wife and kids gets raped and murdered in front of you? You're gonna find a positive in that, huh? And I sat there and I was kind of floored, but because I do the Cut the Crap show and I review books, first example came to my mind. And I said, please sit down and go on your phone and read the story of A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Anybody read that book? Good book. Real good book. You all know what that guy went through, right? He found purpose. If you go through the chapters of that book, by the way, Viktor Frankl, for those of you who don't know, Viktor Frankl and his family were held captive in World War II in Nazi concentration camps, lost his wife and his daughter. And Viktor Frankl found new purpose. His new purpose was to stay alive in the concentration camp so he could tell the story. And so that he can examine the behavior of people in the concentration camp and see what made people live and what made people die. Why did people give up? And why did people survive? Obviously, a guy who's interested in resilience, I got to read that book. Give me the most negative circumstance you can give me, and I will always find a way to turn that around into a positive. Whether it is a family member getting brutally murdered, getting bullied, getting abused, I will do the same thing. It's not a setback, it's a setup. One of my clients lost his vision suddenly. And I challenged him, what's your setback? Oh, this is not a setback, it's a setup. This man is incredible. And the fact that he's saying, listen, Ryan, I have all these opportunities now ahead of me because of my vision, because I have no vision. I'm not going to get into the details of his examples, but we can always find the setup. So going back to my car accident, what's the setup from that? Well, I had to force my brain to find the setup because my brain doesn't want to find the setup. My brain wants to keep me down here, wants to keep me angry, but I have to be disciplined enough to find the positive. Okay, what's the positive? Positive is I'm healthy, they're healthy, I have the wherewithal to pay for this. Let me think deeper about it. When I ask a better question, I get a better answer. Wait a second. They were driving at 40 kilometers per hour. They could be driving at 100 kilometers per hour. I could be dead. Oh man, very specific. Okay. You know what? The setup from this is that it's going to increase my awareness. I should have been in control of that situation. I should have seen that. And my friends will come to me and they say, no. You couldn't see that. It's not your choice, man. Sometimes bad stuff happens. I disagree. I feel like that if I was aware enough, I would have seen it. I would have stopped. Crazy how this story ends. It was maybe 4 or 5 months afterwards. It was wintertime, and I was turning to go to the gym. It was 5 a.m., dark. I'm sitting there, flipping the music, and I see the light turn green, and I hit the gas, but my self-awareness, because I've trained myself now to be more self-aware behind the wheel. I look left, I look right, semi-truck coming right through, real fast. And I'm like, oh my God, is he gonna go through that? He went right through that red light. At that moment, I put into park at the green light, texted my friends, did a quick video and said, guys, remember when you challenged me and you said that there sometimes isn't a setup? I'm like, let me just tell you what the hell just happened here. I'm like, I went through and the timing was extremely crazy. I probably would have been smoked by this guy, and maybe I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that experience. There are always hidden lessons in every negative circumstance in our life, and it's just up to us if we want to find it. It's up to us if we want to find the positive. That comes down to our own discipline to look for the positive and do away with the negative. So that's one of my power philosophies. The other one, it's not one that I created, it's one that Marcus Aurelius created. It's, life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. That increases every single one of the 4 pillars of resilience. Why? Because this game is rigged for me to win. Life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. No matter what negative comes in my life, that's there to teach me a lesson. And so every single negative circumstance that comes to me, I will now look for the positive in that. I will look for the lesson. I will look for the setup. Because it's not happening to me. I'm not a victim. But if something bad happens, my brain now is triggered to look for the positive from that. That's key. So key. Those are my 2 power philosophies. The other 2 that I have, discipline determines destiny. 3D, right? I know that if I can achieve what I want to achieve in my life, then I just need to be disciplined. And it's very, very simple. And the other one that I have is Latin, ad vitam officium. If I cannot find a path, I will make one. And that's been, why I am here, why I'm here today, right? I've always believed these things. So power philosophies. What are your power philosophies? What are the things that when life is getting you down, you have something to fall back on that says, okay, it's going to help me reprogram my brain, short circuit my negative fear response, my natural monkey brain's want to get angry. What stimulus am I going to take in to help kind of change that around? I've given you 2 that are mandatory. It's not a setback, it's a setup. Always look for the setup. And life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Power philosophy, the first one. The next one, challenges. I put my clients through a lot of challenges, and I like to do 90-day challenges, 90-day sprints. Right, I like to put 90 days in there because 90 days is a good period of time, right? Like it's not too long, not too short, it's a quarter. So I like to do 90-day sprints. So we will do 90-day health sprints, diet sprints, focus on lead generation, finding a new job, depending on what it is they're at. So if they have big boulders, big challenges in their life that we identify that constantly bring them down, again, maybe it's health, finances, work, whatever it is, they have things that aren't going well in their life and it's bringing them down. We set their goals, and their goals are attached to 90-day action plans. What are you going to do in the next 90 days to turn things around, to change it around just a little bit? Sometimes, most of the time, they don't hit their goal. And I don't necessarily care about that because I care about the journey. Who did you become on the journey? What did you learn? How did you get better? And as we do these 90-day challenges, they always improve. And it's actually incredibly funny. I act as my client's accountability officers, and one of the things that I always do is, it's hilarious because every morning I look at my phone and I have a lot of workout challenges with my clients. So first thing in the morning I look at my phone and I have 30 text messages from sweaty people, some sweaty men, sweaty women, just doing a selfie saying, did my workout, because I want to make sure they're accountable. And so I always say that if I ever died and somebody looked at my phone first thing in the morning, they wonder what the heck I was up to. But it's it's that point of accountability. In the 90 days, I say, in the 90 days, I'm going to hold you so accountable to whatever it is. And the workout goals are always in there. So how do I keep them accountable? Challenges are absolutely critical to moving up that ladder. If we don't challenge ourselves, man, we don't grow, we don't build resilience. And that to me is a really big one. The last one is one that's very interesting. It's community. Right? There's a great book by Johann Hari. Anybody ever heard of Johann Hari before? No one, eh? Oh, poor guy. He's got to brand himself more. Johann Hari created a book called Chasing the Scream. And in his book, he talks all about, Chasing the Scream and Lost Connections. And Lost Connections, he talks about why depression is so prevalent today. And a big reason why is that it comes down to our communities. We don't have very big communities anymore. And when people are depressed, they're not a part of big communities. Now, he says there's 9 reasons why people are depressed. And one of them is the fact they don't have community in their lives. And that the older we get and the more disconnected we become, the more disconnected, the more connected we become online, the less interaction we're having with people. and that lack of community in our lives is actually hurting our ability to be resilient. And he makes a very interesting case for that I'm not going to go into detail. That's his research. But community, looking for your community, understanding who makes up your community, who is in your circle of influence. Do they have a positive impact on you? Do they have a negative impact on you? Do the people in your life, family members, friends, colleagues, do they bring you down or do they bring you up? And a really tough part of that module is making the hard decision to say, who are the people in your life who are bringing you down? What hard decisions are you going to make to either help them bring you up or cut them off completely? And that's a really hard module, but I hold them accountable to that, because if they're serious about building resilience, serious about turning their life around, the people in our lives can either bring us down, and if they do, man, that sucks. That sucks. So, we have the two precursors: purpose, goals, the 4 pillars: self-awareness, self-actualization, self-belief, self-discipline. We have the short circuit and reprogramming parts of our brains. I've shared with you 3. Right? Community, challenges, power philosophies. There's so many more. But I want to go back to the stories that I talked about at the very beginning. The first one, the first individual where she got divorced, new job, new city, daughter gets hit by a drunk driver. That is Candy Lightner. Candy Lightner, for those of you who don't know her, is the founder and creator of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Instead of looking at life and saying, my life's shit, divorce, new city, new job, my daughter's dead, I got nothing. Instead of giving up on life, giving up on herself, no, she decided to find a purpose. And Candy Lightner is still alive today, living her purpose, trying to educate people on the dangers of drunk driving, trying to find justice for people who are who get into accidents, who are drinking and driving. She found purpose. She found meaning in life. She set goals. She achieved them. Candy Lightner, she's a resilient one. The next example, for those of you who are in Winnipeg, you might know this one in particular. That little boy who died that day, February 2 years ago, his name was Sir Raphael Tesfamariam, and he died on St. Anne's Road, going to school. His mom, Addie M. Tesfamariam, sat there, and I had the pleasure of speaking with Addie M. and understanding how she was able to come back from such a tragedy, from such a traumatic experience. And she sits there with a short sleeve shirt on and her son's tattooed on her arm. The one answer she came back to me with gave me a cold shiver. She goes, Ryan, I was done. I was a dead human being, meaning that she was dead inside. I said, then how did you get back? She goes, my community brought me back. She moved here from Eritrea 3 years ago, and the Eritrean community here in Winnipeg is very tight-knit. When she couldn't even get up out of bed to brush her teeth, to eat, to bathe herself, her community was there for her. They cooked for her kids. She has 3 other kids. They cooked for her kids. They clothed her. They bathed her. They helped her rebound. Addie M, because of her community, bounced back. She is a resilient one. The last example, the individual who lost both of his sisters to fentanyl overdose, wife with MS, losing his health, losing his business. I'm happy to say that that individual is somebody local as well, and he has gone through the Caligiuri program. His name is Christian Clavel. He's the CEO of Canadian First Aid Training here in Winnipeg, and it's his responsibility. He has AEDs, and he does first aid training here at Canada Inns. And he is a remarkable individual in the fact that he has faced such slaps in the face from life over and over and over again. And even though his purpose was challenged, he still stuck to his purpose. And by following the program, I told him, man, set goals for yourself. Focus on building the 4 pillars. Go through short-circuiting, reprogram your brain. I'm not going to tell you it was easy. I'm not going to tell you and sit here and say, wow, it was so easy. He was able to turn around his life. This stuff doesn't happen. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. This stuff takes discipline. It takes time. It takes effort. Just like it takes time to build up a body, it takes discipline to build a body. It takes discipline, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience to build up your mindset. It's hard. He still struggles today, but he's much stronger. And today he talks about this. And you might say, how can you talk about such a personal story in front of people? Because he wants me to. Because he is a resilient one. And he says that if I can do it, anybody can do it. So look at your own lives. What challenges do you have in your lives? What negative circumstances, negative people, negative events, negative thoughts do you have in your mind that bring you down? My question to you is, what are you going to do about it? So what? We've all faced pain. We've all faced hardship in our lives. So what? I'm sorry to sound so insensitive, but I've gone through hardship. Every single one of you have gone through hardship. We're all connected by that. So what? How are we going to do like Candy did? How are we going to do like Addie M did? How are we going to do like Christian did and rebound? We do that by focusing on our resilience. Because every single one of us here, we're all resilient ones, and maybe we just don't know it yet. But I'll tell you right now, it's my purpose every single day when I wake up to help just share one little golden nugget. And I hope that today, there's one little golden nugget maybe that I shared with some of you that when you walk away from here, you'll maybe think twice and maybe think, you know what, maybe I need to focus on my resilience. Thank you so much, everybody.